Hello, I'm Joseph Rich, producing artistic director here at RepStage, and I want to welcome each and every one of you to our 5th annual Women in Theater Conference. I come to you today from my home in Baltimore City, which sits on the unceded land of the Piscataway people. I need to thank some folks who make this whole conference possible. I'd like to thank Grace and our entire planning and advisory committee for the conference. Their incredible work, dedication, and passion makes this conference possible. And for them, I am truly, truly grateful. I'd also like to take a moment to offer my personal condolences to the family, friends, students, and colleagues of Dr. Shirley Dunlap. I know that her passing recently has caused great loss, both personally and professionally in our industry and our region. And Shirley, I know I'll be holding you in my heart today. Shirley was very much a part of this conference from the beginning, serving on the advisory and planning committee, and this conference meant a great deal to her. So I hope you'll join me in holding Shirley in your heart today. And now I have the great honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. But before I do that, a little piece of housekeeping. If you should have a question you'd like to ask during the Q&A following the keynote address, please put that question in the Q&A function. We ask that you don't put it in the chat because your question might get lost, and we want to make sure we get to everyone's questions if we can. So please, again, any questions for the Q&A following the address, please put those in the Q&A function. And now I'd like to introduce to you Dane Figueroa Aditi. I am so grateful to call Dane both colleague and dear friend. Here at RepStage, Dane has been seen as Queen Isabella in our production of E2. Her choreographic work has been seen in Kill Move Paradise, and her work as a playwright and again as an actor will be seen in the world premiere of her play, Ghostwriter, here at RepStage in spring of 21. Dane is a playwright, novelist, actor, choreographer, healer, and many, many other things. Her work has been seen not only all over our region, but across the country. I know that she is an artist I want to have at our theater whenever we can. Her work is inspiring, joyful, challenging in all the best ways. And I'm so grateful that she's here today. I now present to you Dane Figueroa Aditi. Have a great day. Enjoy the conference. And I hope that you continue to find moments of joy and peace in these very difficult times. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Lady Jane Figueroa Aditi. I am a Black, Nigerian, Cuban, Indigenous, trans woman, a performance artist, a playwright. I wrote Clytemnestra, an epic slam poem for Black trans girls, the Diaz Family Talent Show, Dance of Memories, Ghostwriter, and many more things. I'm a priestess, an author. I have got 13 books published. I'm a choreographer. An advocate, a daughter, a sister, a partner, a mother to some, and a friend. Before I begin, I want to say the names of Nina Pop, Dominique Remy Fells, Raya Milton, Tiffany Harris, Laylene Polanco, Ty Underwood, Penny Proud, Alon Nettles, Tyra Hunter, and Kisam. Maybe take a moment of silence for them, as well as all the trans, two-spirit, and non-binary people who have lost their lives due to state-sanctioned violence. Ashe. Thank you. Everybody take a breath in. Exhale. Take a breath in. Exhale. Take a breath in. Exhale. As we journey through today's keynote, I'm reminded of a question that my teachers and elders often would ask as they told us stories. Who were you in this story? Who are you in this story? And who do you want to be in this story? And I add that, what will you do? I'll add the question. I'm reading from a piece of paper, y'all. Ooh, child. And I add the question, what will you do to become the you desire to be? I want to tell you a story of the womb of the world, the cradle of theater that nurtured it through spirit and spoken word. Our tale begins in Africa, Mother Africa, amongst the first peoples. While our tale may be considered an embellishment, I think we don't berate white cis men for embellishing, so why berate me? Y'all don't do that to Shakespeare. The hour is night. The sky is filled with stars that revolve around herself. The moon is full tonight, beautiful, silver. She spills a shimmering waterfall on a circle of beautiful black people. A fire rages as libations have been poured to ancestors and sacred names have been spoken to the wind. Somewhere, not too far away in a house, a woman with skin that shimmers dark is adorned in the sacred symbols of what is to come, or rather who. With mask that hides her face but signals her gifts, her robes which sing like rain kissing grass sways, swish, hisses, and honeys the atmosphere she proceeds forth. The drum begins. Fast, her body spins, turning, revolving, becomes, remembering, and bearing forth the tongues of those who must speak. Hands rush up and down, forward and back, making it appear as if she has flattened herself into the dimensions only to re-emerge larger than the moment before. In and out of herself she weaves the dance. Her voice, their voices lets loose a musicality that grandmothers have passed to mothers who have passed to their children until time ends. Her hand leads her arm behind her as it fixes itself on her hip, and her other repeats the gesture, and she has become. She gathers the stories of generations and places them before the senses of those around her. She is herself. She is others. She is ancestors. She is God. She tells us of things that we thought lost to our bones, and yet our DNA recalls them instantly. She releases the sounds of undulations and adoration, weaving waters into life. She tells us tales of spider women, fish people, sacrifices of beauty for humanity, and cautionary tales. Her language is psalm as well as lexicon, bringing forth that which perhaps we thought was gone. And she dances, spinning, 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 spun, the drums quickening her pace as the tale she weaves is shifting, changing her as well as those who hear it. Quicker, faster, fragrant becomes the air with possibility. Figments of what is always paints themselves on night breeze. Her voice is beautiful. Now croaks. She has become older. She cleans, reasoning as she ushers in clarity. She is wind. She is honeyed hips. She becomes, has become, is becoming. And when the drum has ceased, she spins back to herself, back to the sacred house that grounds her in now. And as the waters of time part, I whisper to myself, this is the birthplace of theater. It is my utter belief that theater has the power to save lives. Theater institutions have the opportunity to center, affirm, and participate in frameworks and or ways of engagement that prioritizes creatives over product. Theater institutions can utilize theater work as a means for liberation. Theater institutions have the opportunity to lead by way of example as opposed to simply recreating models that do great harm. It is my belief that theater is spiritual, and that the practice of making theater requires as much intention, integrity, and expansiveness as any other sacred work. Shows are constantly in a state of becoming every time creators work together to give birth to them. It is my belief that before the Greeks with their amphitheaters gave us Euripides, Medea, and Aeschylus's Oresteia, that in Africa the adornment of spiritual emblems to become have been long in practice. In theater, the creatives allow the spirit of words to infuse concentrated moments with a reality that everyone believes together for however long that requires. Lastly, it is my belief that theater is not the building by which the practice is presented, but theater is every creative who is a part of it. And theatrical work, as the reality of doing, is the way by which our realities are explored. Through the ritual of making theatrical work, one is confronting, dismantling, holding accountable, affirming, healing, centering, or reinforcing certain experiences, practices, or systems. Because of this, who we bring into the space becomes theater. Because of this, theater has a responsibility to operate as an agent for change. Therefore, the systems we witnessed outside of the theatrical institution do not exist separate from the world we are commenting on or critiquing through theatrical work. If theater is the creatives, then what are we to say of the theatrical institutions? The institution is a space in which theater can be facilitated, but it is not the theater itself. If every institution were to collapse, theater would still be able to happen because the creatives are the theater. The institution is not the theater. The institution is a space or an organization that theater creatives have, for lack of a better word, ordained with the responsibility of producing theatrical work. With that said, it is imperative for the institutions to prove to the creatives why it is important to be saved beyond the collective power that we have ordained it with. Institutions need to be in right relationships with the creatives that are key to its survival. Ask yourself, is your institution a tool for liberation or a shackle attempting to bind creatives to the same oppressive systems that enact violence on their lives, their personhood, and their bodies outside of said institutions? So, as we sit on the precipice of a world that is demanding we divest from white supremacy and invest in equity, liberation, and cultivating affirming spaces, one of the questions that we explore is what work am I doing outside of this institution to birth the world we are longing to experience? As we look back at the world, as we look back at experiences within theatrical institutions, you must ask yourself, who were you? Who are you? And who do you want to be? We are often led to believe that theatrical work is not political, that it is an objective art form that can explore the realities of our life without the level of expansiveness that we are demanded to have in our personal lives. Theater, in quotations, is often cited as a job first, and that the work is something that is taken on for a brief moment and then taken off as one seeps back into their own reality. Creatives are told to be removed from the vulnerability they have witnessed, experienced, or the psychological violence they have had to endure. What practices are theatrical institutions putting into place so that creatives are allowed to grieve, heal, and restore? Is there room for joy in our practice? We have witnessed the great debate of who gets to tell the story, who is telling the story. Another question we must ask is who gets produced to tell the story? If production is born within the framework of an art form that reflects the time, that is having conversations that we desperately need as humans or embodied divine beings, if theater is an art form that comments on our triumph as well as seeks to heal our traumas, If theater is an art form that demands accountability for the violence characters actors portray on our stages face, if theater is an agent for change and a possible facilitator for healing and connection, how is it that those in charge of making theater don't know what's happening in parts of the world that the systems of oppression we decry have deemed not worthy of our attention? And why is it that theatrical institutions seem to not be invested in cultivating economic equity? We know the wealth gap that plagues the world, let alone this country. We know the history of economic violence that has been enacted on Black and Indigenous peoples, immigrants, and other systematically impacted communities of color. For example, if you love Black trans people and you say you are invested in our lives, then tell me how many Black trans creatives you have working in your institution. How many Black trans creatives have you produced? How many Black trans creatives' leadership do you honor? How many Black trans people are you invested in caring about that goes beyond the artistic relationships that have been established between you? How many Black trans creatives do you actually care about beyond what producing their work has done for your institution? Racism, patriarchy, white supremacy, transphobia, homophobia, misogyny, ableism, and biphobia, amongst many things, have not simply been tools to justify the violence that BIPOC face, but also have been weapons wielded within theatrical institutions and by some of its creatives to attempt and sometimes succeed at silencing countless artists. Silence that many were taught to believe will buy access enough so they do not have to be silent next time. Let me say that again. Silence that many were taught to believe will buy access enough so they do not have to be silent next time. Well, for some folks, next time never seems to come. The demand that Black, Indigenous, artists of color center the white gaze. The demand that trans creatives center the cis gaze is born from, instrumental in, the perpetuation of, and a reinforcement of white supremacist culture. So I ask you, when these moments came up at your institution, were you? Who were you in these stories? Who are you? And who do you want to be? Theater institutions, as they have become codified in these United States, had a very real agenda, imitating and mirroring business models steeped in white supremacy. Models that saw the board as king, the artistic director as its mouthpiece, and everyone else with varying degrees of access and power. Creating boards that sometimes do not represent the very people whose stories are being told on stages, making decisions on what is worthy of being told and who is worthy to tell it, often centering the white cis male gaze. And I ask you again, who were you in these stories? Who are you in these stories, and who do you want to be? Are you ready to make the type of art that is truly transformative, that goes beyond centering white feelings and gets into the very real work of not only saving people's lives, but activating the necessary imagination that is so deeply needed for humanity to survive, for theatrical institutions to survive? What we are being asked to do in this moment is not only examine our place in the complicity or complacency to the violence that has been known to occur in theatrical institutions, but to be accountable, to heal, and to move forward with frameworks that sometimes dismantle our inherited ideas about who has the right to make decisions within them. For too long, the model of theater institution has been burdened by the obligations to a white supremacist framework, beneficiaries of its violence, while demanding Black, brown, Indigenous peoples and creatives sustain it. This is not love. This is abuse. It is not enough in these moments to have the labor of all these incredible artists fill your theaters with roundtables and analysis, while the praxis you invest in as an institution or a person is still one that allows for the institution to suppose white benevolence, when every piece of evidence we have been given is to the contrary, or perpetuate white supremacy that births nothing more than more suffering. The hierarchical nature of theater does not serve us. Are you ready to create, as my siblings Rochelle Faithful and Erica Totten states, as a leader full space? Are you ready to abandon the white supremacist patriarchal frameworks that may be familiar but cause us pain all the same? Are you ready to lead with love, intention, and integrity, and not fear? Are you ready to heal internally, personally, and together? These are some things I want you to think about, some questions to explore. I want you to get educated. Also, no shade, but reading White Fragility ain't it. Reinforcing and investing in the idea that white people will listen better when it comes from other white people, or it centers the white gaze, is in fact white supremacist. Honoring, centering, and affirming the leadership, wisdom, and expertise of Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color artists is better than cradling white feelings. Honor the wisdom of those who are wise. There are people who have been doing this work for years. Pay them. If we live in a capitalistic society in which folks got to pay money to eat and have a roof over their heads, pay the artists. Pay the artists that you bring into space to share their wisdom with you. Examine your place in the hierarchy of white supremacy and ask yourself, are you dismantling these systems, or are you perpetuating them because you benefit from them? Is the survival of the theater institution really your focus, or is it your comfort? If a theater institution is not willing to become more expansive, more equitable, more affirming, more liberated, is it in fact worth being saved? Are you really woke, or are you just good at using social justice catchphrases? What is the difference between your policy, politic, and praxis? Who are you? Who are you? When you strip away the title, the prestige, the trauma of wanting to gain everyone's approval, or the hubris of thinking you know more than those who are suffering under your leadership, what are you left with? Who are you? Do you like who you are? Are you actually invested in cultivating a community of care or not? And for some folks out there, stop blaming white supremacy for why you aren't doing right by the artists who collaborate with your institution. You must still do the right thing in spite of and despite white supremacy. You know who I'm talking about. Are you offering artists the higher salary? Are you actually honoring the leadership of your non-white employees? What steps are you taking in your personal life to end white supremacy? What is the demographic of your staff? How many non-cis white male playwrights have you produced? And dare I say, are you demanding the Black and Indigenous, Latinx, Asian playwrights you produce to center the white gaze? Are you? Are you committed to diversifying your board? And not for pats on the back, not for points, but because you are invested in centering the leadership of non-white people. What is your stance on reparations? When harm happens, are you taking accountability? What are the steps you are taking to collaborate with the communities reflected in the shows on your stages? What is your commitment to liberation? And I've said this before. I'll say it again. Stop saying the work is hard, white people. Saying it is hard requires great strength. Tell the truth. Say it's inconvenient. And then, when you grapple with that, reflect on what that says about you. Whose gaze are you centering in your work, in your life, in yourself? And lastly, if you do not remember anything from this keynote, remember these questions. When the twilight of your life is at hand, who were you in this story? Who are you in this story? And who do you want to be in this story? From the story from earlier, I'll say this. And when the drum has ceased, she spins back to herself, back to the sacred house that grounds her in the now. And as the waters of time part, I whisper to myself, I whisper to you, the time for change is now. Thank you.